Alright, welcome back to Do Your Damn Self. My name is Craig. They call me the Jack of all trades. A lot of people who know me know that I'm a bass player, and I'm a bass player in a band called From Then On. We're here out of Dallas. There comes a time in every bass player's career that he dreads above all else, but comes a time when we just have to do it. That is changing out the bass strings. Yes, I know, don't run away please. I'm going to show you how I change my bass strings, the techniques I use to have the utmost safety. There's no sharp edges poking out. I'll show you how to string it and then adjust the intonation after it's strung. So stay with me. Here we go. All we need to do this are a very few simple tools. I've got my multi-tool, just basically wire cutters, pliers. To treat the fretboard, just plain lemon oil is wonderful. It cleans and it conditions the rosewood fretboard on here. That's really all we need to get started. That and our bass strings. I like Jim Dunlop bass strings, the stainless steel ones, 55 through 115. They are the only strings I've found that are heavy enough to maintain our low tunings. We go down to drop B tuning, and people who don't know a whole lot about music, that is low, trust me. So, we can get started here. First thing I do, unbox your strings. Don't get freaked out. Always save your packaging. I do anyway. That way you know exactly what you ordered last time, and you'll know what to order the next time. When these come out of there, they will be a little springy, so keep them away from your eyes. A lot of seasoned musicians who change out their strings on a regular basis and do all their guitar work are probably laughing at me right now, but there are plenty of folks out there who don't do this kind of thing on a regular basis just because they either haven't been shown how or they're afraid they might mess something up. Either is a valid argument to take it to your local luthier, guitar center, wherever, and have them change out the bass strings for you. Do a setup on your bass to, if your strings are a heavier gauge or a lighter gauge than you used before, that is not a bad idea. I personally leave the same gauge strings on my bass. I'll change tunings, I'll keep these same gauge strings. I don't tune up to standard tuning ever on this bass, so I never need to adjust the neck tension on the truss rod. If you had to do that, it's a good idea to take it down and let a professional do it for you. It takes all the guesswork that way, but it will cost you probably close to $60 to $100, I would guess. Alright, first things first, make sure all your strings are unpacked, straight, and without any kind of kinks in them. Just examine them, pull them along your fingers and see if you can feel any kind of a defect in there. If so, send them back to where you got them, because they are bad. If you feel any kind of kinks in there, it is going to affect your guitar and your strings are not going to last. So always make sure your strings are in good order. So first thing to do, undo your E string. I always take off tension off the head of my bass on all of the strings. That way it eases up tension across the board right away. There's no uneven pulling on the neck that can have an effect on how this thing plays. So always be kind to your instrument, it'll be kind to you. Make sure they are nice and loose. Alright, E string first. Just unwind it. Easy as pie. In a second, I'm going to show you how I make sure that my strings are the same size as before. And I've already measured them out before, so I can get the right string measurement so nothing is poking out. I don't have too much winding around the tuners. Alright, This is the old string. Do not try to use this again unless you have an absolute emergency or something, because they are pretty much dead by this point. Find your biggest new string, line them up on the bottom. You can see how much longer the new string is than the other string. The old string is right here. We are going to cut every single bit of that off that we don't need. It will just get in the way, and any loose ends, trust me, are sharp. I've been scratched with these from my previous bases that I didn't do this kind of thing with, and by bases owned by other people that I've been trying to help them on and off the stage with. So, find the ends, clip it. Old string. All right. Line the tuning peg up with the string. This is how I do it. You don't have to do it this way, but this is how I do it. The very end of it, insert inside the tuning peg. There is a hole there just for this purpose. I bend it, I give a wind, just one time around, just to start it going on this little journey to where it needs to go. So start tightening it. I tighten it from the top down. The reason I do that is by the time I get it down to the bottom of the peg, I am out of string, and all the string tension is on the base of the peg instead of the very top of the peg. That way it didn't have a tendency to get pulled over like that. It puts a lot of wear and tear on the tuning pegs. So keep the bottom of the string low on your tuning peg, and it will help you get a good long wear out of your tuning pegs. I don't know if any of you who have ever changed out the tuning machines. It is a pain. It can be done, and one of these days I may show you that on one of my other bases. But for right now, let's keep it easy. It's not a bad idea to go ahead and measure your strings out past your tuning pegs. I like to keep mine about 3.5 inches out past the point where it contacts the pegs. 3.5 inches out here. That gives you plenty of string to wind up around your tuning peg. That way it didn't come out of tune. Once we get all these strings in place, what we'll do is loosen them up, get them out of the way, condition our fretboard, and get the tuning right. As you're tightening these, make sure that your string thickness is the same thickness as you had before. Otherwise, it will not fit into your nut properly. It will not slide back and forth. If you need your grooves adjusted, you may have to have your nut worked on. Write your own joke there. All right, it is important to have the string direction going properly on here. I'll give you a close-up view of that in a second. This is a side-by-side head on my bass. It means 2 tuning pegs are this side, 2 tuning pegs are this side. The ones on this side of the bass wind this way. You want everything going from the middle out like a tree. That way it keeps proper tuning and proper intonation. All right, a little lemon oil on there. Don't be afraid to get lemon oil on your strings. It will not harm them. Might even keep them a little bit lubricated for you. I've never had any issue at all with lemon oil affecting my strings whatsoever in a bad way. Just give them a good scrub. You want your fretboard to look nice and wet with lemon oil. That way it soaks it up and stays moisturized until the next time you do this, which hopefully won't be that long. All right, get your tuning to where you usually play it. If it's too low, it won't show up on your tuner. go with a C-sharp tuning. Do not tighten one string all the way until you get the other ones about to where you need to be too. Sounds kind of comical, I know. It's very important to keep your bass level. One thing that I do to help keep my bass in tune, stretch the strings out a little bit before you get ready to play. A very good bass player named Holly West of Zepparella showed me this trick right here. When you get it to where you want it, take your string really lightly, just pull up on it. Not much, about like that. Just give a little pull and relax it. Do that with all of them. Once she showed me that, I tried that, and it really helps shorten the break-in time on your strings. It stretches it out enough that they won't be changing tuning on you while you're playing that much. They still will a little bit, but this definitely does help. Something else that I do, I'll tune it up half a step from what I usually play and leave it for about an hour or so. That way it helps to stretch out, get them nice and even, and then when I tune it back down, about a half step down, it should be fairly stable. Okay, from bottom to top, this is where all of the little eyelets line up, pinched in right there. That keeps them in place. Down the fretboard, they'll fit nicely into the nut. They won't stick up much above there. This is how the strings should look on a side-by-side 4-string bass. See how it's winding around this way? It's all coming from the center and going out, pretty much like a tree. Going out this way. That way the strings don't get crossed up. They don't have to go at weird angles. They are just going straight up. That is exactly how it should look. Let your strings stretch out overnight. Check the tuning tomorrow, see if it's somewhat stable. Readjust your tuning and play as you feel. As soon as the strings get settled, they calm down a little bit. Right now they're going to be very, very bright. So let them calm down, let them settle in, let them get to where the tuning stays just right. Then we can work on intonation. All right, intonation time. Schecter bridges have small 1.5 millimeter Allen screws locking these in place. There is nothing in place to adjust it up and down on these particular bridges, unlike the Fender barrel type bridges. So what you have to do, you're going to have to loosen the string, loosen that Allen screw right there, and just physically move it by hand when you figure out which way you want it. I am tuning to C sharp. It's pretty stable. Goes to the 24th fret. Alright, we are flat. Flat. Alright, what we need to do is loosen that up a little bit. Undo your tuning a little bit where it becomes a little bit loose. And just carefully move that this way. If you're flat, you want to shorten the string. If you're sharp, you want to elongate your string. Basically, you're just going to move it this way if you're flat. Move it towards the neck. Doesn't take much to move it. Lock it down. Put your string back in tuning. Get back to C sharp. See how it is down here. You may have to do this 2 or 3 times before it gets right. Alright, let's do that again. Loosen it a little bit. They're pretty loose. move it towards the headstock. You don't want to move it a great bit any given time, just move just a little bit at a time. Okay, we are back to C sharp. Twenty-fourth fret. It is almost there. Your bridge pieces will almost never be straight across like you see on advertisements. Also, your tuning pegs will never be straight across up there. That's just for show. That is as close to perfect as I'm going to get right there. So lock it down. Do the exact same thing for the rest of your strings. Do it one at a time. The bad thing about intonation changing, if you change one, other strings might change a little bit just because of the tension on the neck. It is a constant battle to keep the tension even and your strings level on here. Don't be afraid to move it a little bit just to see which way you're going. But if you are flat, go this way. If you are sharp, go that way. If you don't believe me, try it yourself. You'll see. But don't be afraid to try it yourself. So as the strings break in, you may have to change the intonation a little bit. Not a problem. But once the strings are good and broke in, you shouldn't have to change your intonation after that much at all. As long as you go with the same kind of strings when you change them out, same thickness of strings, same brand of strings, you really shouldn't have to change it much either. Once it's set, it's set. If you change weights or brands of string, every string reacts differently. What it's wound with and what it's made of. So keep an eye on your intonation, watch your tuning. Don't be afraid to do it your damn self. Love you guys. We'll see you out there. Over time, you may have to keep an eye on it to make sure the Over time, you may have to just keep an eye on it to make sure the strings stay even and the intonation